Hey, Camo.
Hi, Steffi. How are
So
you?
we had quite a start to getting on there. So I think actually we probably should take some breath to get centered here. Cause are you good?
Always good to do breath. Always, it's never fails. It never fails to reground, just kind of like shed, just for your listeners. Like, I kind of parked myself as a pseudo technologist, and I had a heck of a time connecting to Zoom today. But it's par for the course because what you said, the moon is in retrograde with Jupiter. I don't really know what
Oh,
all
I
that stuff.
don't know. I think it is, but a few weeks ago, my car got hit in a parking lot where nobody else was. Blair just called me right, like literally 30 minutes before our episode. He's washing his car, and and,
Do you have the most incredible laugh? Has anybody ever told you that? I just want to go on record to tell you that laugh is impossible. Look at you.
now I'm not going to be able to stop. That's how it happens. I'm getting all reclamped. But no, so Blair is stuck somewhere. Poor guy. I was like, do you want me to reschedule? He's like, no, the show must go on. So, and he knew I was talking with you, and I've been preparing all week. So he's like, no, just do it. So he's somewhere, he's like MacGyver in Blair's suit.
Well,
So
that's where I was thinking. Like, there's so many directions we can go with what we want to talk about today. And look, I'm so serious. I'm going to take my glasses off. One of the subjects I thought we can talk about is how much I love your husband. Like Blairo, which I call him Blairo. I call him 9-layer Blair because he's always got layers of clothing on. That guy is, you both like struck gold when you found each other, which I think it should be a whole podcast to itself, is how you guys came to be is subject of interest.
is it? Well, I have yet to have him on. I keep telling him I need to book him for the show, and he's like, call my people. So he will be out on
I'm
the
his
podcast.
people.
I know.
Do this.
I know. So
Let's have him on.
we will. And of course, Cam and I, we know each other from jujitsu. So let's go back to that. Let's introduce you. So Cam, can you pronounce your last name? Because I just call you Camo.
You do call me Camo, and I think that we have Annie to thank for that. So we have a tight group of friends, and I love you like a sister, and I know that you like me like a distant brother. Yeah,
that
so
I get to choke. Yeah.
You still haven't choked me.
Yeah, because your neck is so thick that I you don't.
Hey, easy.
Sorry.
We're in public. Easy.
This is a family show here.
Show. So yeah, we know each other from many circles, friend circles, jiu-jitsu circles. Yeah, like you're best friends with my girlfriend. I'm in love with your boyfriend, your husband, yeah, your husband who once was a boyfriend. Yeah, it's
okay. I tell him I'm his wife, his girlfriend, and his mistress. So he's all set.
Hey, I'm going to start a podcast. That could be the title of my podcast. Just building on the name of yours, which is fabulous, by the way.
Thank you. I know. I think it's an interesting name that throws people off, but for me, it's got a deeper meaning from the superficial meaning of the dream, the date, and the broken bra. So, yeah, it's fun. So,
I promised myself today that whatever happens on your podcast today, whatever subject we cover, and there's lots of subjects we can cover, that I would answer your questions and not let you run away with your machine gunning of questions that you do so well. And if you remember, when you were fishing around, you were socializing names for your podcast. The one that I was lobbying the most was what? Good luck answering. Good luck answering. Good luck answering, because you're so...
Well, hopefully you've listened to other podcasts that you do here that I do let people answer their questions. So I've learned, but it is hard because I just get excited for the next, and it's like bam, 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 bam. But I mean, honestly, really, like, I know there is a lot to talk about, but I think, and we can go off whatever direction, but and we actually, Cam and I were starting to talk, like, what do we want to talk about? And he's like, let's just hit record. So that's like, we're kind of doing our debriefing and just going for it. But I know, I think what I admire you about and what you've started this like movement, especially in our jiu-jitsu community. And I know you also welcome other people in the community that we live in to come, and maybe people even fly to come work with you in your breath. And I know it's now become a thing inside of our jiu-jitsu community and other jiu-jitsu communities. And I started really focusing on breathing back when I started doing yoga in like college, because I had asthma and I had to learn a way to calm down, because I was also like a Division 1 soccer player. And I would get asthma attacks, and during training and stuff, especially in the summertime when it's like I was on the East Coast, it would be super hot and humid, and I'd have to learn how to control my breath to not go into having an asthma attack. And I did that through diet and food, and then also like my breath, and then yoga, also the practice of yoga, of getting centered and grounded, and then also like the breath. But now it seems like there's a whole nother movement going on. And I got familiar with it through you. And then through COVID, I started taking the Wim Hof, his like online, I didn't do his like online class, but his like free online classes of like the breath, the cold, and its flexibility is the third part, correct? And so I really would love, I mean, there's so much in that, because you're so inspired by that. You are passionate about it and really wanting to make an impact for people. So, and I think breath, as we do it so automatically, we take it for granted, and because we know that it's hopefully going to be the next breath, but it's also a tool that we can use, that if you maximize your breath, or like learn different techniques, it can also help you in other areas. Would you say that's kind of accurate, or what would you add to that introduction?
Wow. Okay.
Here's me talking.
Where to begin? To begin? Wow. Okay. Maybe we set the kind of the foundation from which we can kind of build from, so your audience can follow along and not think that we're completely out of our minds. Just a little. So, breath technique. Yes. So I fell into learning about the Wim Hof Method back in 2018, and I think that's a good place to start. And so if I can take 2 minutes to talk about that, which back in 2018, if I was in a room and I would ask people, how many people have heard of Wim Hof? You might get 1 out of 30 people. Mm-hmm. Today, that number has grown. So this Dutch guy, his name is Wim, his last name is Hof, developed this method that focuses on 3 components. The first one is breathing exercises. The second one is voluntary exposure to environmental elements. In this case, we use cold and cold therapy. And then the third one is kind of the benefit of, if you focus on 2, the third will follow. And that is kind of a mindset and focus that are the 3 pillars of the Wim Hof Method. I was working for a near clinical wearable company, so think of like Fitbit, but a lot more accurate, called BioStrap. Hi, Samir, how you doing? And the CEO asked me to, he came across a study that was published on the Wim Hof Method. It was the endotoxin study, which they inject a Wim with these dead particles of E. coli, and they kind of measure what happens with its physiology. And through his technique, he was able to minimize, if not get rid of, the side effects that can come about, which are like flu-like symptoms. And so he came across that study and asked me to look into it, and I did, and I was fascinated. by it because I've always been fascinated with science. And during the daytime, I'm a data scientist, so I work with a lot of data. The Wim Hof method and the breath stuff is, as you mentioned, is a passion for me. It's a avenue for me to serve and to help share a lot of the knowledge that I'm kind of absorbing with whoever happens to be in my circle, in my community. So I'm not really discovering anything new. I'm just absorbing information and sharing it in a practical way with people. So that's how I was exposed to the Wim Hof method. One study, read one after the other, and the layers of this thing just kind of became fascinating to me. And I, like you, I took an online workshop. I think I took like 3 or 4 of them. Then I did a 2-day workshop. Then I did a 5-day workshop. And the next thing I know, I'd done enough workshops where, the organizing body behind the Wim Hof method said, hey, why don't you just consider becoming a Wim Hof instructor? And this was back in late 2018, 2019. And there were only like 150 people globally who were recognized and licensed by the Wim Hof organization to teach it. So I was like, okay, this can be an interesting side thing that I do. And I love the science behind it. I love what it's doing for me personally. And so I kind of went down that path. And since then, now we're going to fast forward 3 years to 2022. I find that the Wim Hof method is the kind of, for me, as a once a quarter kind of event where I organize workshops either at my house or a number of gyms that I'm affiliated with. And I've done a bunch of private sessions, mostly with like corporations and private individuals, like at their houses and things. But the breath is something that it's almost like running. All you need is a pair of shoes. You don't really need much as far as equipment. You don't really need anything to be able to do breath. So I find the breath component to be a lot more accessible for not only for myself, but for people. So I kind of went down that rabbit hole and began absorbing as much information as I possibly can and reading as many books as I possibly can and actually, applying it, like going to a couple of seminars and speaking with some of the individuals who are focusing on the science of breath. And as you know, I come at these practices predominantly from a scientific approach because I want that factual basis so that I can try to describe what is happening esoterically when we do a breath and it changes our chemistry. I want to be able to articulate from a science perspective why it is that we're doing what we're doing.
Yeah, and I want to actually go back because you said something about when you started learning more about it and doing it, you found it so fascinating and it had you keep going. And then knowing you and your science background, what did you find so fascinating about it that had you keep going on? Because I know probably too, like you like the science behind it. What in your research and in the beginning that had you keep going to be so fascinated with it?
So great question. I'll answer that very specifically. I need to give a little bit more background on the breath and why it spoke to me so much. Okay. So back in, like you, I've been an athlete all my life. And back in the late 80s, early 90s, I was competing in triathlon races. Done a bunch of Ironmans. I don't even know how many triathlons I've raced in, but I was kind of elite level age group triathlete. And we came across, I was training with some friends and one of them had purchased this program by a guy by the name of John Douillard, who's a chiropractor out of Colorado. And one of the things that he was a proponent of was nose breathing in training. Also using a heart rate monitor.
Wait, what do you mean? No, like breathing through your nose, or
breathing through your nose?
One. Okay, so because you had holded, I know that's another breath technique when you hold one side of the nostril and breathe in through the one that's not closed. So because you had pictured that, so you're just saying breathing in through your nose while you're exercising.
Correct. So not isolated nostril breathing, but this is just like you go out for a bike ride or you go for a run, and most of us when we do that. I mean, the tendency is to breathe in and out of our mouths. He's a big proponent. Shut your mouth and breathe through your nose. And so we were
It's hard.
following very difficult. So we were
Yeah.
following this program for like 6 or 8 months, man. And it was painful. Like, you know, as triathletes, we're really just kind of married to our performance numbers, and you're watching your pace, your running pace go down. You're watching your average miles per hour on the bike go down. And you're like, what the hell am I doing this for? And it's very painful. So things didn't, but I knew that I felt better, but I just couldn't describe why I was feeling better.
So you were
Fast
feeling
forward,
better, but your performance was going down.
Performance and training was going down. I wasn't able to, I think I gave up on the program. I don't really remember what happened, but I just felt better, but I couldn't describe why it was affecting me the way that it did.
Okay.
So gave up on that program. Fast forward to like 10 years. Now I'm living in Colorado, in Boulder, Colorado. And my coach used to, and I'm a cyclist. I'm just focusing on being a cyclist. And my coach used to have us go up in the mountains, like 9,000 or 10,000 feet of elevation. And again, nose breathing only, which really sucked because not only, I mean, back when I was triathlon racing, I was living in San Diego, so we're at sea level, but now I'm up in elevation, which is like making you even, my physiology work even harder to grab those very precious and fleeting oxygen molecules. But I had like one of the best seasons as a cyclist out there, and almost won those state championships, and so on and so forth. But I couldn't describe why it was having that impact on me. So I have this history of training as an athlete, nostril breathing only through my nose during training, but I couldn't describe what it was. So now that this time, when I got exposed to the breathing techniques in 2018, 2019, coming at it from a scientific perspective, I can describe what's happening to our physiology with regards to the interplay between carbon dioxide and oxygen, and how those two work together to set the chemistry of the body up so that the body can attract and transport as many oxygen molecules to our working factories, our muscles and our organs, and what breathing can do for that. Now I can describe that. Now it makes sense to me why it is that I was feeling those feelings. So that's a long answer to your question. And I'll end it by saying that one of the reasons that I'm attracted to breathing is because it is an absolutely, in my humble opinion, the most accessible, meaning that anybody can do it relatively any place, anytime. There are certain situations where you shouldn't, or you shouldn't, but it can have an absolute impact on our physiology, our emotionality, our mentality. So it affects our mind, it affects our emotions, it affects our body. If you don't like how the world is moving around you and you're having a tough time wrapping your emotions around it and feeling grounded, if you're feeling anxiety or stress, or you just don't like what's happening to you in any moment, if you take 10 breaths in a particular sequence, it will begin to shift that. And it is almost like a reset button that you can do. And you don't need to subscribe to anything. You need to buy anything. You don't need to do anything. It's all just make it the impetus to breathe 10 or 20 or 30 times. And that will change your entire perspective in your world. And that's what attracts me to it.
Do you want to go through like what a proper breath is? Because if people are like, we breathe and it's so natural and it's automatic, but yet we don't utilize a full breath, does that even do anything? So maybe describing like how you actually should breathe in those moments of like what you were just describing, anxiety or stress, or like feeling ungrounded. Do you want to go there?
Yeah, I mean, if you want to go there, I'm happy to go there. I mean, the proper breathing depends on the situation. So long as you're conscious, it's almost like eating. You can sit in front of a TV and shovel food in your mouth and be completely unconscious of what's happening. Or you can make your dinner and sit down at a table and like make an event out of it, and it's almost like a meditative process where you're aware of every spoonful, every forkful of food that you put in your mouth, and you put your fork down and you chew it and you proper and you pay attention to what you're eating. That's kind of like the analogy. And the breath is sort of the same thing. We breathe, like the average person breathes 15 times per minute. That equates to roughly about 21,000 times that we breathe in a 24-hour cycle.
Wow.
Each time that we breathe, we're taking in about 25, and I'm going to say this number, it's a funny one, 25 sextillion molecules of oxygen. And that's, just to give you some perspective, that's the number 25 with 21 zeros in front of it. And again, to give it a little bit more context, that's a big number. To give it a little bit more context, if we assume that there are 7 billion people on this planet, and if each person had 7 billion ancestors, so 7 billion times 7 billion, whatever that number is, which is 49 billion, that number is still to the factor of 500 less than the number of oxygen molecules that we breathe in with each breath. That's a shit. I mean, I love numbers. Yeah. I'm not going to lie to you. I love math.
I'm like glazing over.
A dork. I'm like... a dork. I'm a dork. What do you want me to tell you?
It's fascinating. So, but it's putting things into perspective. So I'm sorry, you were going into that 7 times more.
Yeah, well, the point is we take in a shit ton of oxygen with each breath, but that doesn't mean that your body is utilizing that much oxygen.
Yeah.
In order for your body to utilize that much that oxygen, to grab onto those oxygen molecules and transport them, a bunch of stuff needs to happen with our body chemistry. And oftentimes our body chemistry is not set up properly to be able to do that act. And so the breathing techniques that are really passed down for thousands of years, we're not really doing anything new. We're regurgitating, relearning ancient set of tools that go back 3, 4, 5,000 years back to the Tibetan monks. We're just seeing a rebirth of them and a continued wave of rebirthing, backed with science now. So now we can explain why the Tibetan monks use this style of breathing called tumo, which Wim Hof popularized as more of a more accessible way for us human beings on the street. So what we do is typically the breath is broken. Now I'm going to specifically answer your question. The breath is broken into shallow breath and deep breath. Mm-hmm. Shallow breath means that we breathe into our chest only. So the breath tends to sit up here a lot. Mm-hmm. When we're stressed out. If we're not consciously thinking about our breath, it tends to occupy this cavity. It just sits up here. This area, the chest breathing, also happens to be a sympathetic stimulator. And mm-hmm. sympathetic stimulator means that fight or flight. So if someone is feeling anxious, and if the breath is up here, anxious is feeding more anxiety.
Right. Is that though, are you breathing in order to feel it in the chest? Are you primarily breathing through the mouth at that point? Or could you still be breathing through the nose and getting it only in the chest?
Yeah, it doesn't matter how the air is going. It's just that the breath is concentrated in the kind of the upper abdomen. It's not even in your abdomen. It's on the upper cavity. It's up here. Okay. If we were to kind of close our eyes, and if someone's like got a lot of stress and anxiety, where is the breath? People will say, I feel shallow. Mm-hmm. The breath is shallow. It's not really going deep. It's just kind of staying up here. That's what we call shallow breath. This is what we call, even though it's filling up our lungs, like our lungs, this beautiful organ, the lung is, I think we could talk 4 hours about the lungs alone, which we're not going to, but the lungs, that's where the breath is. That's where the exchange of CO2 for oxygen happens. It's really a miracle how the breath works and how oxygen enters our body and gets transported. But the point is that the breath, shallow breath is up here. Deep breath.
So, and just so to explain that, if people aren't visually seeing it, it's basically from your chest up to your throat, right? Is what you're kind of pointing to. Yeah. Exactly.
It's kind of like, our rib cage up to our throat. That's kind of, it's the upper cavity. And that is where the breath, it just feels shallow. It doesn't go deep down into our roots. Mm-hmm. So that's
the opposite. I experience that a lot. And I do my breath, but I experience that a lot, and I can notice like when the anxiety starts coming up. So now, sorry, so the opposite is going into.
Yeah. So before we go there, do you like, when do you notice it? Do you notice it mostly like at work if you're stressed out or
Yeah.
something? Yeah.
It's interesting because like I'll be doing like this and this and this, and like I actually, when I first started going and working at the job that I have now, I would be in like back to back to back meetings, and by the end of the day my stomach would start to hurt. It would get like super bloated and it would hurt. And I was like, what, am I not drinking enough water? Like, what's going on? And then I started realizing, I'm like, I'm not breathing. And I would literally, and actually even this past week, I can just tell I literally feel like I'm holding my breath, like while I'm
Yeah.
trying to do a bunch of stuff.
Yeah. I think it would be important for me to kind of qualify breathing as this kind of hybrid nervous phenomenon that we do. So typically speaking, we categorize things that our body goes through as either autonomous, things that happen automatically. So think of like your digestion or the flow of blood, things that you typically don't have control over. And then there is somatic. Somatic is opposite of, well, not op, is complementary to autonomous. And those are things that you can tell yourself to do. So if I ask you, for example, raise your right arm, that's a command that your brain tells your body to do. So there's autonomous, there's somatic, and then there are these functions that kind of reside in both of those dimensions, such as blinking. Like if you don't pay attention, you will automatically blink because eyes need blinking to do all functions. But if I ask you to blink purposefully, that's something that you could do. Breath is sort of falls into that area as well, in that you're working, you're concentrating on your job, and happens to be like a stressful day, and you're breathing without really being conscious of it. But if I asked you, Stephanie, take a minute and I want you to breathe into your diaphragm, that's something that you could command yourself to do as well. So when we're, I don't want to say unconscious, but when we're on that automatic pilot zone of breathing, especially when we're stressed out and we got things to do and there's emotions involved, that stress emotion, the breath tends to be shallow. And when it is shallow, it's actually stimulating our fight or flight system, which is innate to all humans, all living beings, really. But for us humans, I like to describe fight or flight. If you imagine the caveman, cavewoman days, you know, fight or flight is anything that happened outside of the cave was fight or flight. They were hunting, they were on alert, there was maybe like dinosaurs coming and chasing, maybe there was other tribes that were trying to, you know, kill them or whatever. When you're outside of the cave, you're on high alert. When you're inside of the cave, the visual is, you know, you got a nice little fire going, you got like some brontosaurus leg roasting, someone's playing music, you know, like people are chilling, they're relaxing. That's our parasympathetic nervous system, our rest and relaxation. When we breathe deep, engaging our diaphragm, and I can talk about why we want to engage our diaphragm, that stimulates our parasympathetic or our rest and recovery. And so the best way to deal with stress and anxiety is to purposefully remind yourself and engage the lower part of our abdomen or our diaphragm, and diaphragmatic breathing actually calms the body back down again. That's a great way to deal with that stress and anxiety.
Yeah, it's so fascinating, like, because it is true, like a few breaths, just stopping and like focusing on that, how it can reset. And perhaps I've trained myself to be able to do that too.
Yeah, so let's if we can, let's pivot to athletic performance, and we can specifically talk about jiu-jitsu. And your heaviest rolls, we tend to be more on the fight or flight. Imagine rolling with a multi-stripe black belt, former MMA fighter, like heavy, big, 6'4", 240-pound, just the guy that you would, or a girl, that is, you feel like is going to rip your arm off, right? You're like, oh shit, I'm going into this. So you're going to be on high alert. Your sympathetic nervous system is going to be on high alert. You know, you gotta defend yourself at best, right? So the tendency in a role like that, and let's say it's I don't even know, like let's say it's a 9-minute role, right? It's a big role. And so the tendency would be to be breathing really heavily under a lot of stress. And what that does is it begins to this feedback cycle of more stress on top of stress. And you get to the point where you cannot think clearly about what you need to do to flow and to protect yourself. So you begin to make mistakes because most of your energy is going through supporting this breathing, this your physiology, and less energy is going into your computer system or brain so you can think clearly. However, same scenario, if you can manage to train yourself to breathe better, now you have this extra energy because your physiology is calmer, and your this extra energy can go into your computer system, your brain, and will allow you to think creatively on how to problem solve that otherwise you wouldn't be able to do if you were just breathing heavily through your chest.
Right. So what do you, well, I mean, now if we're going into sports, but, so that's like a whole thing in itself. What other examples can you use? Because, and it just, for clarification, when he says a jiu-jitsu roll, rolling for people who don't do jiu-jitsu is when you're actually physically training in jiu-jitsu and you're like grappling one another. So, you have to use, like he's saying, it's like when someone's trying to choke you or submit you in some fashion, it is a flight response because you're trying to avoid that.
100%. Let's give some other examples. I also like to surf, and I know that your husband does as well. In big, heavy surf, if you approach the surf from a place of stress and anxiety, and you begin, let's say you're just paddling out, if you start out stressed, it's going to be a rough day.
Yeah.
If you calm yourself down and you flow with not only your breath, but with the energy of the ocean, oftentimes the paddle out won't be as harsh as otherwise it could be. Even a better example, let's say, Kai Lenny is probably one of my most favorite athletes. If people don't know who he is, he's just an incredible waterman. He has pivoted away. I mean, he does everything well, but he's now focusing on giant surfing. So he surfs 80-foot waves. And imagine you're surfing a heavy, huge day and you wipe out in surf. And so you're now under the water with tons of water crashing on top of your head. You have a choice. You can try to maintain, you've been there. You can even try to maintain calm and calm yourself down and think how to problem solve your situation, or you can freak out. And freaking out has some dangerous consequences. You can drown. Same thing with running, same thing with cycling. I mean, the application of using breath as a portal to calm your central nervous system, your physiology, and your mentality down so that you can either problem solve in whatever situation you're finding yourself into, or to be able to think clearly on how to optimize your performance. It always starts with breath.
I love
and
that.
I just went back and rewatched Hickson Gracie's. There is a documentary on him called Choke. It's available on Netflix.
I haven't seen that yet.
I've seen it like 3 times, and I just finished reading his book as well, and I went back and watched it again, and gives you a little bit more context as to some of the things that is. It's an hour and a half long, I think, maybe an hour long documentary. But in it, there is a section where he talks about how he controlled his breath as a way to set his physiology right when he goes into these valitudinal, no holds barred, pretty much minimal rule. You're basically there to kill the other guy, not literally, but you're there to beat someone up, and pretty much anything goes. You got to be able to problem solve. You got to be able to think dynamically, and he utilizes a breath to be able to set his physiology so that can happen. Right. We also saw more recently Kelly Slater had age 49, 6 days before his 50th birthday, won the Pipe Masters in Hawaii. And there is a short clip where his girlfriend mentioned to him he was very nervous before his final heat, and he was able to utilize breath to bring himself into the present moment. And that allowed him to be more in this flow state so that he can think clearly about what to do and how to compete proper. And now I'm talking a lot, but I like it. But that's one of my favorite sayings, is that we can't breathe into the past. We can't breathe into the future. You only have one option, and that is to breathe into the present moment. And that's the kind of the dilemma of the human being, is that we are always battling between three dimensions. One dimension is what happened in behind us. One dimension is what's might happen in the future. And then there's this dimension that is in the present moment. Mm-hmm. And our challenge is that suffering exists in the two outer dimensions, in the past and in the future. Suffering doesn't necessarily exist in the very present moment. Mm-hmm. More often than not, it doesn't, but sometimes it does. But our challenge is to be in the moment. And I think breath is a fantastic way to bring ourselves into the moment.
Yeah. So fascinating. And I like the present moment talk is always so fascinating to me. But what is the connection between the cold, like the super cold, because I've now do this cold bath that, because our sweet friends Annie and Dave, they decked out their whole backyard for everybody that we can now crash their house several times a week to go do this.
Don't give out the
I know.
Location.
But like I never really loved cold, and now I find myself doing it, and even days when I'm like, no, I don't want to do it, I go in because I know, like you with the breath, I hate it, but I love it, like, because I love how I feel after, like what Annie always says, it's like a rebirth, and it feels like a rebirth, even if like I feel like I've been hit by a bus from training, or I have this thing when I eat sugar, I feel like I'm hungover, like I can go in there and it literally like just shocks the system. And I don't know if it's like the increase of blood flow that just like the super strict constriction, and then the increase in blood flow, I have no idea. But I winter time, I tend to fall out of my cold morning showers. They're not that, like, I'm not super motivated to do that, but I try to do the cold showers in the morning. But what is the connection between the breath and the cold that he put that together as the like module 2 of the Wim Hof Method?
Yeah, so the cold is, again, that's one of those portals that we can spend quite a bit of time on, because there's this physiological component to it, and then there's absolutely this emotional, psychological component to it as well. But think of it, I have to believe that the connection, the thread between breath and cold, is that our breath gets taken away when we're in severe cold. In severe cold, again, as a scientist, I have to be able to quantify these things. And I think severe cold is an individual dynamic measurement of any temperature that is just outside of your comfort zone. So in a shower, we all love hot water. I don't care who you are, you love hot water. I love hot water. Everybody loves hot water. Warm water, we can stand. Right? Like if Blair takes one of his famous showers and there's not enough hot water left in the tank, and you get in to take your shower.
He's hardcore. He does the cold showers. But you know what he does? He leaves it on cold, and then I get in the shower not realizing it, because we have the like on off thing, and I'm like, oh God.
But let's just assume, because he's a big boy, he's got a lot of real estate to wash. Let's just assume that he wants to take a nice long hot shower. Let's go with that.
Okay.
So let's say he's washing, he's covering all the areas that he doesn't often, but let's just say he does. And you get in, and you get in, and you want to take a hot shower too, except now all the hot water is gone, but it's warm. You can stand it, right? Mm-hmm. But if you stay in there for a couple of minutes, that warm water that you could, tolerate now starts to get cold. And as soon as it starts to become agitating, I think that's the threshold for us to pay attention to. And it changes. Today is going to be different than tomorrow. Tomorrow is going to be different than the summertime. Summertime is going to be different than wintertime. It always changes. So imagine we have found that temperature where it is just agitating and you get in it and it immediately takes your breath away. Now, take that moment, but magnify it even more so. Imagine that you're walking on a frozen lake in, pick your state, Alaska, for example, and the ice breaks and you fall in. I call that in my workshops the oh shit moment. Oh shit, the ice broke. I've fallen in cold water. I'm fucked. Ooh, can I cuss?
Yes.
Are you going to beep it up? Okay. I'm screwed. So that's what I call the oh shit moment. In our workshops, because we haven't in fact fallen into a lake, a frozen lake, our lives aren't really at jeopardy. Eventually, the body will physiologically calm itself down. I call that moment the shit shift moment. It's actually a term that was coined by
technical.
Doc Trish. These are terms that were coined by Doc Trish, who's in San Diego, a fantastic human being and one of the early Wim Hof instructors. So this isn't my term, but I've adopted hers.
Okay.
But the point is that our physiology will adapt. And it will adapt because the initial point of falling in through the ice or sitting in an ice bath, the hormonal effects of that are equal to us being chased by a saber-toothed tiger. It is stimulating our fight or flight. It is an absolute shock to the system, right? But eventually that shock will go away and your body will begin to stabilize. And you will realize that in fact, you're not being chased by a saber-toothed tiger, but you're just sitting in an ice bath in someone's backyard that's beautiful and everything is okay. And your physiology will begin to adapt. There are things that are happening with regards to vasoconstriction, which you pointed to, where your body is going to stop the circulation of the blood in our extremities and pool it to protect the vital organs. So all the warm blood's going to be in our diaphragm, protecting our gut, protecting our heart, protecting our lungs, which is, if your body was going to be under severe stress, it wants to protect the vital organs. And so it pulls the blood in that area. And then you eventually get out. And your body will eventually realize that, hey, that was an interesting experience. And it begins to open up those veins again. So now we have vasodilation. And so this cold blood that's in our extremities begins to circulate and mix itself with this pooled warm blood in our core. And it's kind of like weight training for our physiology. We're doing vasoconstriction. We're constricting the veins. So we're squashing them down. And then we're opening them up. And that's vasodilation. And this is like a cardiovascular exercise for our internal piping, which we don't normally get.
So there's so much that I love about that. So going back to your analogy of like when you pictured the caveman days of being in the cave and then outside the cave, like we don't really have that many. I mean, there are things that cause that fight or flight response, but really we're not really put in situations that we could necessarily die. Like jiu-jitsu, we're not going to die because we're going to tap, or you know what I mean? Or surfing, you potentially could die, but like, there's things that we're not really under these things. So like going in the cold, it's like this extreme to like kind of mimic that too.
100%. Correct. Absolutely. If you
to kind of expand, because we've like kind of gotten softer, so to say, that this absolutely like expands our
and one of my favorite books of all time is Dr. Anna Lembke out of Stanford. She just released a book a few months back called Dopamine Nation, and in it
Blair was telling me about that book.
Fantastic book. And in it she talks about exactly that, Stephanie, in that our physiology is still Neanderthal physiology. It's designed to withstand a lot that we don't give it credit for.
Mm-hmm.
Our technology is godlike technology. We literally can send signals up in space and receive it within a few seconds.
Mm-hmm.
We have godlike technology. We have Neanderthal physiology, and we have systems such as our food systems and our transportation system, the government systems, the financial systems. All of our systems are kind of like still industrial age 1.0. So we have an imbalance in how we live our lives on a daily basis. Mm-hmm. Our physiology prospers and does well based on friction. It needs friction, almost like the reason that people go to the gym and work out and lift weights and do cardiovascular, and the reason that we exercise is because we want that friction to break our muscles down, and then through rest and recovery we get stronger. Our muscles rebuild and we get stronger. Same is true for our emotions and our mentality and our chemistry. But because, to your point, our lifestyles have gotten so soft, we have everything at our disposal. We literally don't have to leave the house. We still crave and we still need that physiological friction. As a result of not getting friction, people develop addictions to various things. The number of addictions that are now clinical are incredible. It used to be like alcohol and drugs, maybe alcohol, drugs, and sex. And now it's alcohol, drugs, sex, social media, shopping, hoarding, you name
Gambling.
It. Water addiction. There is Anna Lempey talks about one of the, I think Andrew Huberman out of the Huberman Lab, again, out of Stanford, asked her, what is one of the most unique addictions that you have ever treated? And she pointed to a young woman who unfortunately lost her life, but she was addicted to water. It was water addiction.
Too much.
She discovered that if she drank enough water, that the loss of minerals gave her a high feeling, and so she would get high out of over drinking, and eventually that unfortunately ended up having a severe effect on her physiology, and she lost her life as a result of like almost literally drowning herself by drinking too much water. So and that's in her premise in this whole book, is that because we're not getting the friction that our physiology is designed for, we begin to look for it elsewhere. So let's bring it back to your question. Is our ice baths or exposure to cold a good way to reintroduce a certain amount of friction in our physiology that we actually thrive on? And the answer is absolutely yes. But it doesn't have to be an ice bath. It can be at the end of your shower, just go to a temperature that it begins to agitate you. And by agitate, I don't mean like you're ready to punch someone in the face. Just go towards discomfort. That should be the title of my book, by the way. Just go towards discomfort. Because we like comfortable living. If you, for example, especially here in places like San Diego, where our average temperature is really narrow. Think about where you begin to feel cold and reach for a sweater or a jacket. And when you begin to feel too warm and you begin to either take layers of clothing off or turn on the air conditioning, that range is maybe 10 degrees, maybe like 70 to 80 is where we live, right? But our physiology is really designed for a lot wider. So how do we increase this bell curve, this average? We have to practice out here in the extremes to be able to increase this middle ground. And how do we do that? Is by engaging in sports that make us uncomfortable, by taking cold showers, by doing breath work, which gets us away from just breathing like empty calories, but we're actually purposefully...
the breath in itself, like the breath that you teach, it's freaking hard. It's like a exercise. It's like a workout. It's exhausting to me.
It is. It has its moments where you have to put in the work because nothing is free in this life. So you got to work for it. But then there is bliss at the end of the rainbow, right?
Exactly.
You get that high feeling.
It's the same thing
chemicals.
as the cold, right? It's like it's shocking, but then yet you're like, oh my God, that feels amazing. Like when I'm out of it,
That is 100% true. And I think it would behoove us to also acknowledge that there are ultimately minimally two ways to approach something of discomfort. One approach is fuck, I don't want to do it. This is going to suck.
Mm-hmm.
Just go approach something from this place of negative energy,
Mm-hmm.
or you can approach it from a place of discovery and
Mm-hmm.
say, oh, I'm going to go do something that's outside of my comfort zone. And when I don't know what's around the corner, when I don't know what's in my future, that's where discovery can happen.
Yeah,
That's where you can learn something new about yourself.
I love that point, because it also goes to point, like, if you're feeding the anxiety with anxiety, or like more shallow breath, you're going to get more anxiety. So it's like, if you, the same thing with the mindset of like, I'm going to approach this with like being curious, what could I get? It could open up something where if you're like, this is going to suck, it's going to suck. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, look at you. When you were thinking about, starting this podcast, I'm sure that you had moments of doubt. I'm sure that you had moments of,
like,
what the hell am I doing? Like, what, on your first interview, like, you were nervous. You didn't know what was going to happen. You still don't know, but you're going to do it anyway. And you can either approach it as, shit, I got to interview this Kam guy, or you can approach it from, oh, I'm going to talk to my friend and let's just see where it goes. Yeah. And maybe I'll learn something, and there's some discovery here. And so I'm saying that we have a choice, and it oftentimes comes down to our mindset. And the mindset is coincidentally the third pillar of the Wim Hof Method, because how we set our mind towards anything is going to have a huge impact on how we feel about it and what we ultimately gain from it. And so I've spent a ton of time to try to understand, what is it when we say like mindset and focus, what is it that we're actually talking about? And so I've distilled mindset into one phrase, and that is that I can. Mindset is I can. And that to me talks about anything. There's a famous quote by Muhammad Ali, and he says something to the effect of, mindset is what you repeat to yourself, is the repetition of affirmations. And those affirmations will eventually lead to a belief system. And that belief system, once it takes deep conviction, then things begin to happen, both on the positive and the non-positive side. If you tell yourself that you're not good enough repeatedly, which is kind of the voice that I think most of us battle with every day, that repetition of that affirmation that I'm not good enough will become a belief system. And that belief system can get deeply rooted. I mean, look at African Americans with the slavery, or look at the Jewish folk, or look at Middle East. I mean, you can point to a lot of different examples of societal groups that have been told you're not good enough, you're this, you're not enough. And that belief system becomes part of their culture. And guess what? Now science is showing that it can get passed down from generation to generation. Even if you and I believe that we're empowered and we're good and we're creative and we're intelligent and all that stuff, we're still carrying baggage from our ancestors. Yeah. And so that is also parts of it. So mindset is, I've distilled it to I can, but that I can needs to live alongside of a couple of other things. And one of them is focus, and focus is I will. So if mindset is I can, focus is I will do this. I will approach the ice bath from a place of desire and flow, and not a place of anxiety and fear. And then you also have to have some commitment, which is you're gonna do what you say you're gonna do, which is I do. Commitment is I do. You got to mask that with something called integrity, which is you're gonna do what you say you're gonna do, and then to have an open mind to it all, and that wraps around everything. To have that childlike approach to things, that I don't know everything. I'm gonna go into this conversation. Maybe I'll learn something new. And not go into it thinking that I know everything, and that's just not the growth mentality.
Is that your recipe for success?
Success? Who says anything about success? But that's what I try to at least live up to.
I'm just saying that's what your recipe is.
That's my recipe. Yeah. That's my recipe. I try to live up to it every day. But I also, and I think it's important for me to say that I also give myself permission to fuck up, because I think making mistakes is really, really important. I like to always say that, we all talk about, I want to have more balance in my life. And one of my favorite sayings that comes from Ganga White, who has he's a yoga guy up in Santa Barbara. He's got a foundation called the White Lotus Foundation. He's got a book out. And one of my favorite sayings is, he goes, never balanced, always balancing. We're always in the act of balancing. The only thing that's perfectly balanced is dead. Think of the, swing arm on a grandfather clock. That thing is always going back and forth, back and forth. It's never perfectly balanced. The only time that it's perfectly balanced is when it's not working. Just stay still, right? So I'm always in this act of trying to be balancing, which gives me permission to fuck up. Like if I don't focus on my work, my work is going to suffer. If I don't focus on my relationship, that's going to suffer. But that's okay, because I'll go back to it, and then some other thing will suffer. And it's just this constant act.
Well, and what's cool about that, to circle back, because I've been battling that this week. Like I have my podcast. I have 2 different classes going on right now. I started taking vocal classes, and
I heard that.
Yes, I love them, and and my work is full on. So it's and then I have my husband in jiu-jitsu, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't know how to do it all, and so I have been kind of, but I'm like, okay, I gotta just love everything that I'm doing. Sometimes I don't, but it's overwhelming. But to go back to okay, just breathe, present moment, be present. Because why think about what you're not doing? Because what you're choosing to do is all you can do in that moment, right? So it kind of then goes back to your principles. I think I can, I will, I do, and you know what I mean? So I kind of like that, Kam. It's a full circle, I feel.
You should come to one of my workshops. And this is the type of stuff that
I definitely do want to do one of your workshops. I think each time that you've had them, because you do them quarterly, right?
Yeah, I think the next one is April 23rd.
Okay,
this year.
I will try to plan on that. I think every time we've been out of town when you've had them, or I think I was sick or something. So definitely I would. And I think I'm planning on going next weekend to the one at jiu-jitsu
at
school.
GBE. Yeah, so we're doing athletic breath for athletic performance.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's there's quite a bit of content. I appreciate you coming. That's awesome.
Yeah. I actually just learned about it, I think, today, or I've been hearing it, but then I was like, oh wait, it's actually happening next weekend, and I'm like, I'm free, so I'm gonna come.
Yeah, and it's open to anybody. I don't know when this podcast is gonna get released. In March?
This is gonna be released. Yeah, so they probably will be past due, but maybe in the show notes I can put your upcoming for people that are local, put your upcoming workshop in April. Hopefully this will be released by then too.
Yeah, that'd be great. And then, we have our Sunday breath at Gracie Baja.
Mm-hmm.
That's also open. It's donation based. People can come join us if they wish. But I'm hoping that I answered your question about, we started out talking about breath and what is it about breath. And then we talked about cold exposure, ice baths, not necessarily ice bath, but any temperature that makes you uncomfortable. Lean into it. Lean into those areas of discomfort. Don't be afraid. It's going to be okay. Worst case scenario, in a cold shower, you just turn the water back warm. No big deal, dude.
Mm-hmm.
And then we talked about mindset. And I think, those 3 components, and that's one of the things that I love about the Wim Hof Method, is it just makes it so accessible for everybody to do it. Most of us tend to just focus on ice bath because it's this kind of Instagrammable moment, and not everybody gets the chance to sit in an ice bath. It just seems like something, it's like the new marathon. I don't know. It's something outside of our norm. And so we tend to focus on that a lot. And there's quite a bit of fear and anxiety around it, which is understandable. You said you hate the cold. I mean, I'm Middle Eastern, warm-blooded. If you would have told me back in 2017 that I would purposefully be sitting in 36-degree water on a regular basis, that just wasn't part of my language. And now, to your point, I finally reached, and I would hear people say, my body just craves the cold. It's you're full of shit. You're high. There's no way. And it happened. And if it hadn't happened to me personally, I wouldn't have believed it. And now it's changed my relationship, not only to temperature, because I used to avoid surfing in the wintertime because I hated the cold water and putting on wetsuits. And it has changed my relationship with water, cold water, surfing, which has opened me up to new experiences. And cool. I wouldn't have that wintertime experience had it not been with my embracing cold showers and ice baths. And it's also changed my physiology. I know when I have not done an ice bath, like 3 or 4 days, if I'm not in cold of some fashion, I start to feel my age, and my bones hurt and my body hurts, and I'm not recovering, and I'm feeling agitated. I don't know if did you get this as well? I just feel more agitated. I'm short with people. I'm short with myself. And then as soon as I get into an ice bath the next day, and I think Annie is 100% right, it's like a reset button. And it's just like I feel reborn again. And so we're very blessed to have, our friends Dave and Annie, who opened their beautiful home up to us. And it's just, I love watching kind of fly on the wall the progression of how breath has grown, not within our small community and our friends, and the transformation of Dave and Annie's backyard, and how we began doing breath, shortly after COVID, when we were rolling in the garage and doing breath work after like an hour and a half of jiu-jitsu practice. And now it's regular over at Gracie Baja Encinitas with Nelson and Professor Sean, just kind of leading the charge. And Tuesday, Thursday, they breathe on their own. And it's just kind of like taking it this beautiful form of themselves. And I had the actual opportunity and the pleasure of doing breath for athletic performance at Gracie Baja San Diego with Professor Ale last year. And that was a great showing. We had like 35 people on the mat. And it was a great session and lots of engagement, lots of questions. And I'm hoping for the same at our home studio with people. I'm hoping that people will show up, and it's really a resource for them. And I'm just passing along knowledge that has been gifted to me.
I think it's super cool, and I love that you started the trend, and everyone, because it is so helpful. I want to ask one more question. How often, because you said you start feeling agitated, or how often do you recommend doing the cold? Can you do it too much? Is it something you could do every day, or is it something that you shouldn't do every day, or in order to balance out your physiology, or what do you suggest?
Yeah, that's a tricky question, because as we all know, everyone's physiology is different. And so it's going to become cliche to say that it's a discovery. It's an opportunity to discover your own physiology from a different perspective. And so knowing gives you the opportunity to get to know yourself better. I can share with you that scientifically speaking, an ice bath, the benefits of an ice bath, generally speaking, will last between 4 and 6 days. So if you're in an ice bath about once a week, and an ice bath, you were talking about temperatures below 40 degrees. I've consistently measured my ice bath to be about 36 degrees. And for me, that temperature works well. It challenges me, but I also get the most amount of physiological benefit from it. Now, the scientific studies that have been done on cold immersion have been done on temperatures below 55 degrees. So technically, anything below 55 degrees will have the impact that you want. But I think, perhaps, and this is Kam talking, this is my opinion, there's no science behind it, sue me if you don't like it. I think any temperature that begins to feel uncomfortable is the right temperature for you for that point in time. And then, I'll finish by saying the analogy, the comparison that I share with people is that if we assume that we have an ice bath and the temperature in the ice bath is 40 degrees, And let's assume that the ambient temperature, as is often the case here in San Diego, is 80 degrees. The difference between 80 degrees and the bath temperature in the ice bath is 40 degrees, right? So the delta is 40. Now, let's translate that into what happens in a shower. Let's assume that the hottest temperature that you can stand out of your hot water is 90 degrees, which is about right. And let's assume that the coldest temperature that starts to kind of agitate you is about 55, 50 degrees. What's that delta? 35 to 40 degrees. You were looking for temperature differences. We're not necessarily looking for ice. So the best place for people to start is start ending your cold shower, your regular warm showers with some cold exposure. And you don't, if you want to time it, but I think time is irrelevant. Just do it until you're feeling satisfied. Maybe play that song behind on Spotify. Do it until you're feeling satisfied and end it on cold. Leave your physiology cold so it has the opportunity for it to warm itself back up again organically.
I love that because like if people don't have access to the cold bath, like doing the shower thing is a good a good option as well. Do you recommend to going because I know we do the hot sauna to get super hot and then go into the cold for the extremes, and we didn't even touch into that. But do you think they should go into the extreme hot if they are doing it in a shower? Do like the hottest shower that they can do first, and then, like you say, end on the cold? Or I guess if they're just taking a hot shower, it's a change in temperature.
Yeah, you don't need to go to extremes.
Like you just burn yourself.
Yeah, don't burn yourself. And we also want to make sure that people realize that, if you have some health conditions where if vasodilation and vasoconstriction and the movement of blood might cause some issues, if you have AFib, that's probably not the right thing for you to do. If you're trying to become pregnant, or if you're pregnant, it's not the right thing for you to do. If you have epilepsy, there are certain conditions where don't do this stuff. It can be harmful for you. Also, one of the big risks with cold shower is that if your blood pressure is low and it drops lower, you could pass out and you can hit your head. So I'm just assuming that people know and will exercise common sense knowledge. And oftentimes in our society, we get into the kind of the minutia of, well, what's common sense? Because what's common sense to you may not be common sense to me. Yeah, I get all that. Just be safe, dude. Don't be a dummy. Do this stuff.
I'm going to put that disclaimer in the intro.
Yeah, don't be a dummy. Cam says don't be a dummy.
We're not doctors here. We're not doctors.
Yeah, but even with breath, there's been plenty of examples of people who are stuck in traffic in their cars, and they decide that, hey, I'm bored or I'm feeling anxiety and I need to be home and I'm stuck in traffic. So they start doing breath and they pass out and there's an accident. So don't do it when you're driving. Don't do it in a bathtub. Don't do it while you're riding a bike. Be smart about this stuff, because you're dealing with our physiology, and there is an opportunity, there is a possibility where we could push our physiology beyond a tipping point where you might pass out, or you might, if you pass out and you fall and you hit your head, not a good deal. So always, in my workshops, I ask people, there's this component of no competition, no force. I want people to find 70% comfort level. So we use a rate of perceived effort on a scale of 1 to 100 or 1 to 10. If 10 is we got to take you to a hospital, and 1 is you're wasting your time, you're bored, I want people to find 7 out of 10 and not go beyond 7. Same thing applies to an ice bath. Find a temperature where it's just becoming uncomfortable, and that's the right temperature for you. And every day is going to be different.
Yeah.
Some days, I don't do it every day. Some days I just want a hot shower. I'm banged up. I don't want to force myself to go. And that's the thing. It's always there for you. It's a companion. It is something, this practice is something that will revive and rejuvenate and recharge your batteries. It's not yet another thing that you got to go crush, because we do that too much in our normal day lives. This is counter to the shit that we got to go crush. This is a rejuvenation. This is a rebuilding. This is almost like going to get a massage at a spa.
Right.
That's the treatment it should be under.
Yeah, and you're totally right. There, I mean, I could go on, and I'll have to have you back on, because there is so much more. Like, I'd even love to get into like what is the physiology of each of them, and like what does that look like. There's just so much more to it. But I'm glad that we got to talk about these little tools, because it's like a great introduction to it, of some trying something new, and like pushing those boundaries a little bit, to get out of your comfort zone and have the mindset. I do like your little rules. Those are good. I'm going to utilize those.
I have
Um,
rules? I didn't know I have rules.
or yeah, your
That makes it
little,
sound.
what is, or your, your five principles. We'll call them Camo's five principles.
Oh man. You mean the mindset, focus, commitment, integrity, growth
No, the
thing?
I can, I do,
Oh,
the
yeah.
I can, I do, I will, the
Yeah, same thing.
integrity, and yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
So listen, I know we're probably running over your time limit. I do want, in the spirit of being a resource to people, can I share a couple of things
yeah, of
with
course.
folks? Because I do get these questions asked a lot about, hey, I'm looking for like a guided breath practice and what's available. So if you don't mind, can I share a few resources with
You
people? Is
can
that cool?
definitely share resources, and then I will also put, if they're websites or people, I will definitely put it in the show notes as well.
Okay, awesome.
Yep.
So I just began recording like 5-10 minute guided breath practices that I'm hosting on Castbox. And the best way to find those is I have a website, and my URL is Breath with Kam, all one word. Breath with Kam, and Kam is with a K. So breathwithkam.com. And then up on the top of the menu, there is a link to the Castbox recording. And I just started it, so there's only like, I think 2 or 3 relaxing protocols. And I'm going to add to them. I'm trying to do like 1 a week, so they'll grow. So that's
Awesome.
one resource for you,
And then I'll
my
put
friend.
that link, I'll put the link in the show notes.
Thank you.
Yep.
My good friend Reese has over the past 2 years, he has an online community breath practice called Our Breath Collective. Love these guys. They know their stuff, and it's fantastic. It's a subscription based service. They have live breath practice every morning. I think they take the weekends off, but they have it every morning starting at 6 a.m. And I think they do workshops and they do retreats, and they're just a fantastic resource. So look them up,
Awesome.
Our Breath Collective. And then on my website also, I have a link to a number of YouTube videos that I have collected over the years, and I put them in a playlist that are anywhere from like, 3 rounds of Wim Hof Method to like 20-minute DMT release breath and everything in between. And so that's also available on my website,
Awesome.
Breath with Kam.
And again, when you're practicing those breaths, please be in your home somewhere safe, out in nature, where you're not in a car or in some other unpredictable situation, is what I'm
I
just going
have
to add.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. In the last 5-day workshop that I did pre-COVID, they had us practicing after a 8-hour hike. They had us practicing the advanced Wim Hof Method breath work, which is pretty throttle. Like, you're putting a lot of energy behind it. And our instructors had us sitting up, so we're just sitting, and we do this breath work, and then we do a breath hold. And next thing I know, I woke up with
Oh.
my head on a rock. Apparently I like leaned over, passed out, leaned over, and didn't bang my head, but my
Yeah,
head was gently placed on a rock. So, and I'm,
gently.
whatever, arguably, a practitioner of breath. So one would think that I know what I'm doing, but I think they did that as a showcase of shit can go wrong when you breathe. So be smart about it.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Camo. I am so grateful for your time and that we got the whole computer thing situated.
Yeah, Steph, hey, I just want to, can I end by telling you that, I don't like to speak out on behalf of most people, but I think I will speak on behalf of all our friends to tell you how proud we are of you for this podcast and talk about stepping outside of your comfort zone, man. You're crushing it. Love you.
Love
Anything
you
for
too,
you.
Camo.
And we're just, oh man, this is just, I mean, I'm in like a little bit of tears here. I'm so proud of the work that you're doing. And just bravo with this whole thing. And I wish you all the success wherever you think you want to go with this. And I'm always available. If I can contribute to it, it'd be my absolute pleasure.
Thanks, Camo. Thank you.